another edition of the Kilted Homesteader. Today we're going to be talking about the anvil we recently got and mounted to a black locust stump. This is my anvil. I got it at a really decent price. It's not perfect condition, but it's going to meet my needs. The anvil I then mounted on top. Actually, I'm in the process of mounting it on top of a black locust stump that I cut from a neighbor's tree that he had put down. I then used a Sharpie to outline the anvil to know where it was going to set, and then we used a router to cut a 1-inch trough, I guess you could say, for the anvil to set in, so it stays more secure and stable when we're whacking on it with a hammer, forging pieces together. So I'm in the process right now of putting washers on the rims of the anvil down at the base to hold it in place on the stump. It's really not going to go anywhere. The washers are basically going to just help steady it. The stump's going to be doing most of the work. I'll show you in a minute what I'm doing there. Right there is where the washers are going to be mounted down into the stump with some lag bolts. First I'm going to drill the holes out, a little smaller than a lag bolt is, and then we're going to take a lag bolt and tighten it down so that washer is going to kind of like hook onto the lip right there and allow it to help hold the anvil into the piece of black locust. There's many different types of wood you could use for a base on an anvil. We went with black locust for several different reasons. One, it's less prone to splitting, as is oak. Oak is, I should say, is more prone to splitting. It's a very nice hard wood. However, it's more willing to split as it dries out. Black locust will not do that. The other advantage to black locust is this anvil is going to be kept inside, but however, if it was taken outside, it's one of your longest lasting woods when it comes to influences by the environment. So that's another reason I chose it. Lastly, it's one of my favorite types of wood. I've always liked black locust, mainly because of its durability. It's not really fancy grained or anything, but it's a very durable piece. So we're going to drill the holes and then put the lag bolts in. Okay, so what we did is, like I mentioned earlier, I tapped out the holes. I actually used the 5/16 drill bit, which is a lot smaller than 1/2 inch. I think that's like a 1/2 inch lag bolt is what I used. And I tapped the hole initially so to lessen the chance of splitting the wood. Then I put 2 washers on there instead of 1. The washers aren't necessarily taking a lot of the brute force that's being placed on the anvil with a hammer. However, I wanted to be sure that they didn't bend if I was out here working out here on the end of the anvil. I didn't want to have something bend back in here while I was out working on the end. So I used 2 just to be on the safe side there. I think they're a grade 8 washer too, so they got some heft to them. This side went really well. It went in, no problems with splitting. However, when we came on this side, got a little bit of a split there. Doesn't look like it's going to be too much of a problem. Like I said, there's not going to be a lot of daily stress on this. That split may start to widen, and if it does, we'll have to put some kind of a band around this thing to hold it together and tight so it doesn't split the whole thing. But these lag bolts are probably about 2.5 inches down in. The anvil is recessed about 1 inch where we had took the router around and routed the area, and then we so that's sitting down about 1 inch, and those bolts go another 1.5 inches down past that. I went with a 5/16. I probably could have gone a little bigger with the drill bit, but I wanted to be safe and know that the threads had a lot of grab into the meat of the wood around them, so there's less chance of it stripping out or pulling out as I was tightening it in. One thing to bear in mind when working with wood, when there's chances of splitting, is to work slowly. Don't try to force things fast or you're going to run a chance of splitting the wood. When I was starting it in, I was taking nice quarter turns with a ratchet and socket at a time, slowly watching things, seeing how things were being affected by that bolt going in there. That little split there kind of started to form near the end. That's why I'm not really overly worried about it. I didn't hear it pop or anything. It didn't sound like it happened fast. I think it just slowly happened. Black locust is a very durable wood though. A lot more forgiving to cracks and stuff than, say, oak and some other woods. Like I said, the reason why I went with the black locust, it's one of my favorite pieces. It's the most durable to being outside, although this anvil is not going to be kept outside. It's going to be kept inside. Plan for worst case scenario in case I left it out. And plus, I love durability. Pine is too soft. Some of your other woods, soft woods, you want something hard underneath the anvil, so that when you're striking, it's actually magnifying the power of the anvil by having a solid base. Now, as far as anvil height, I did some research on it, and they said the best height is around, they say, by putting your arm down to your side, about knuckle height. I went a little bit higher for me just because I have a lot of back issues. I think it might be a little easier for me to be standing up more upright than it is to be bent over working. But this anvil is set up perfectly for me. I measured it, the log, for having it routed out and set down in 1 inch. So you got to take all your things, the height of the anvil into consideration, how deep you're going to mount it into the stump, and of course then to let the depth of your stump to come up with the appropriate height for you as an individual. I'm 5'8". This anvil is set up for me. I'm not going to be a professional master blacksmith. Wish I had the time to do that, but unfortunately I don't. But this will make do for any projects that I have going on. And at some point, I originally had started out, I wanted to use like a railroad track anvil. This is a section of railroad track. And I just happened to come across a good deal on this anvil. I know it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it's going to meet my needs just fine. I don't even know what brand it is. We couldn't even figure it out. It is a steel anvil, though. I did make sure that it's not cast. Cast iron is good for short term, but from what I understand, it doesn't absorb the impacts very well. Also, they're prone to cracking, where steel is not as prone to cracking with heavy repeated use. So that's why I went with the steel one. There's nothing wrong with guys that get the Harbor Freight cast iron ones. I'm not talking down to them. There's nothing wrong with it. I would have probably gone the same way if I hadn't gotten such a good deal on this. I really wish I did know what brand it was, just for curiosity's sake. I also wish I knew how old it was too. All I know is I'm sure it's a lot older than me. I'm a big history guy, so I kind of wish I knew the history behind the anvil, but unfortunately I didn't. I got off a guy who does some antique dealing on the side. So, well, thanks for watching. If we have any projects coming up, I'll be sure to video them and show you my progress on things. But I just wanted to show you how we mounted the anvil down on the base. And I'll also make sure to post some pictures on my Facebook page of some of the work that we had done. Like I said, where we had traced around with the Sharpie, and then my dad actually helped me do the routing with his router. So he did a really good job. We're not professionals, but we try to make it look as neat and nice as possible. So I really appreciate your time. I hope you're able to get something out of this, and thanks for watching another edition of the Kilted Homesteader.